It's been 4 years since I got my EB1A approved, and in those 4 years, I've coached many people through this process, done webinars, jumped on calls, answered messages, and DMs. And honestly, the same question keeps coming up over and over again. So, I finally decided to sit down and make the most detailed video I possibly can, walking through my entire EB1A journey. The story of how I got started, the mistakes I made along the way, the things that actually worked, and exactly what I would recommend if you are somebody who's even thinking about going down this path. Before we go any further, let me be very clear about who this video is for. This video is for you if you're on a work visa right now and you're tired of the H1B lottery ruling. It's for you if you're an engineer, a researcher, a product person, a founder, or anybody who's working in a high skill field, especially in tech and AI, who's wondering whether you actually qualify for something better than what you're currently on. It's for you if you've heard the words O1 or EB1A floating around and dismiss them because you assumed that they were for celebrities or Nobel Prize winners. And it is also for you if you're early in your career and you want to start building deliberately so that when the time comes, the petition is the easy part. If that is you, you're in the right place. Now let me also clear up what EB1A actually is, because the term gets thrown around a lot. Most people don't really know what exactly they're looking for. EB1A is the first preference employment-based immigrant visa for individuals with extraordinary ability. In plain English, it's a green card. It is one of the very few green card paths in the United States where you don't need an employer to sponsor you. You don't need a labor certification and you can self-petition it. The standard is genuinely high, but it is not impossibly high, and the criteria are concrete and documentable. I'll walk you through them later in this video. So here is what we're covering. First, the personal story of how I got here, because the panic and the why matter. The second, the mindset shift that took me from I'm stuck to I have a path, and why almost everyone gets this part wrong. Third is what I actually built into my profile during my 7 to 8 month sprint and what I started doing way earlier that gave me that head start. And then fourth, how I chose my lawyer, because choosing the wrong lawyer is one of the most expensive mistakes that you can make in this process. And finally, the holistic mindset that took me smoothly from thinking about O1 to actually getting an EB1A. Every year, there are tens of thousands of brilliant people sitting on H1B denials, layoffs, and visa anxiety who genuinely believe they have to leave. They don't. By the end of this video, you'll understand the path from visa panic to actually getting a green card. So stick with me. So to understand why H1B rejection hit me the way it did, I think you need a little bit of context on where I came from. I grew up in a lower middle class family in India. My mom was the breadwinner of the household. She worked harder than anybody I know. And from the time I was a kid, every opportunity she could create, she created. Every door she could open, she pushed open. She has been my number one cheerleader since day one. Now, the full story of how I went from that household to building a career in the US is honestly a whole different video that I'll make at some point in time. But the short version of this is I made to Columbia University on a scholarship. I graduated debt-free, which still feels a little surreal to me when I say it out loud. And from there, I was able to build a real career for myself in the AI and machine learning industry, working with people I had genuinely looked up to for years. I'm telling you this because by the time I was a few years into my full-time career, I was hyper-focused on one single thing: building the best AI career I possibly could in the US, working with the best of the best in the space. That was my dream. And that's what I had worked so hard for. And then the H1B lottery happened twice. Both the times I did not get it. I had a job I loved. I had built a great community. I had my loving partner with me. I had an apartment, friends, and a life. And the H1B lottery, it is exactly that, a lottery. It doesn't care about your resume. It doesn't care about what you've done. It pulls a name out of the hat, and if your name doesn't come, you wait another year and just hope. I didn't get picked the first year. Okay, fine, I told myself it happens. The second year, again, I did not get picked. And that's when the panic really set in. Because suddenly I was staring at this very real possibility that I would have to leave the country, walk away from the career that I'd built, and start over somewhere else. And that terrified me. Not because of the inconvenience of moving, but because I was laser focused on working with the best of the best people in the AI industry. And the idea of losing access to that after everything that my family and I had done to get here was unbearable. I did not want to disrupt my life. I did not want to leave the US and I did not want to keep gambling on a lottery that I had no control over. So I just started looking out for options. I started asking around, I started reading. And that's when I came across the O1 visa, which is the Extraordinary Ability visa. But that's on the green card side and O1 is a work visa. Honestly, my first reaction when I heard Extraordinary Ability was the same one most of you are having right now. That's for celebrities, that's for Nobel Prize winners, that's not for me. Here's the thing, that's exactly the assumption the system depends on. Most people who would qualify for O1 never apply because they've been told it's for somebody else. So let me be the person to tell you it isn't. Now here is where it gets interesting because the next question is the one that changed everything for me. When I first started looking at O1 and EB1A, I did what almost everyone does. I pulled up the criteria, I made a checklist, and I started asking, okay, what's the minimum I need to do to check these boxes? I'm going to be real with you. Then very soon I realized that this is not going to work out. So I need to stop optimizing for the petition and start optimizing for being genuinely a better professional in my field. If you focus on building a career that you would have been proud regardless of immigration, the petition starts writing itself. Think of it like this. There is a huge difference between studying for the SAT by memorizing tricks and actually being better at math. One of that approaches scales, and the other one just collapses the moment the test changes. Your immigration profile works the same. The transactional checkbox chasing approach gives you a very fragile petition. The holistic career building approach gives you the profile so solid that the petition is just the documentation of the work that you're anyways going to do. Now, let me also be honest about something that did give me a head start. I had been publishing papers since I was an undergrad student and working on patents during my internship at IBM. I had been actively speaking at conferences and sharing my work in public. I had also been doing several projects in the AI space outside of my 9 to 5 for years. I was not doing any of that for a green card. I was doing it because I was genuinely curious and I loved the work I did. And all of that compounded. Every paper, every conference talk, every side project, and even the patent. They sat in a folder waiting for the moment I needed them, and when that moment came, I had years of evidence ready to go. So if you're watching this video right now and you're an undergrad, a new grad, or a junior engineer, or anybody in the first few years of your career, please hear me on this. This is your sign to start thinking beyond your 9 to 5 right now, today. Every single project that you do outside of your work is a brick in the wall you're going to need to build later. Write that blog post, apply to the conferences even if you don't think they'll accept you. Just go ahead and open source that side project. File that patent if your work qualifies. Submit to the journal that you're interested in. Mentor someone, share your work publicly, and speak at that meetup. Trust me on this. Your future self, who might not just be filing an immigration petition, but also interviewing at a company of their dreams or starting a company, that person is going to be so grateful that you started early. And obviously, none of this is going to be perfect. Your first conference talk will probably not be the best. Your first blog will get 5 views. Your first paper may get rejected, but do it anyways. Quantity is what creates quality. The flywheel only spins if you start spinning it. So now you know the why and the mindset that I had. Now let me walk you through what I actually did in those 7 to 8 months. When I made the decision that I want to work on my O1, I gave myself a clear window. 7 to 8 months to build the strongest profile ever. Document it cleanly and file it. So here is what I focused on in roughly the order that mattered. Publishing was the engine. I was already writing on LinkedIn. I just doubled down on that. I made sure my technical content was substantial and not surface level. I was also actively publishing in papers because the bar of scholarly articles in your field is real. If you're in AI specifically right now, this is one of the easiest path of the profile to build because the field is moving so fast that there is endless ground that you can cover. Go pick a niche, go deep, and publish consistently. Speaking was the second engine. I applied to every relevant conference, podcast, panel, and corporate keynote I could find. Not all of them said yes. Plenty of them said no. The ones that said yes added up fast. Judging the work of others is also one of the most overlooked criteria. Whether you're peer reviewing a journal or hackathon judging, conference paper reviewing, or sitting at a startup demo panel, these opportunities are everywhere if you ask. Then the next criteria, which is original contribution of major significance, is a criteria that scares most people. Don't let it. If you've shipped something at work that genuinely moved a metric, that is a contribution. If you've open sourced something that other people use, that is a contribution. If you've filed a patent, that is a contribution. Stack them and document them. Get letters from people who can speak about that impact. Then the next criteria which people sleep on is media coverage. You need to reach out to publications in your space. Pitch yourself as a source for stories. Make sure that you're on the top podcasts. Make sure that you're getting quoted. It does compound. Then there are other criterias like membership in selective organizations, awards, high salary documentation, a leading or critical role at a distinguished organization. Each one of these is a piece that you can chase deliberately. Think of these as your career milestone rather than just something that you're filing for immigration. That is really going to help you. The single best operational tip that I can give you is this: build an evidence folder from day one. Every email, every certificate, every published article, every speaker confirmation, every press mention. Drop it in that folder and organize them by criteria. The difference between a 6-month case prep and the 18-month case prep is whether your evidence file is already been there or whether you're just scrambling to reconstruct 3 years of your career from old emails. Now, while I was putting together all of these things for my O1 petition, guess what happened next? My H1B got picked in the third lottery. Sure, I was super happy about it, but then I just started questioning myself that H1B also is not a very stable visa. If I'm thinking about building a career in this country and I want to settle down in this country, I want to think about more stability. That's when I started thinking that now that I have this case built for O1, why don't I go ahead and start thinking about applying for EB1? And at that moment, I decided I need a really good lawyer who can strengthen my O1 case and actually get my EB1A approved. Because even though the criteria look similar for O1A and EB1A, the level of scrutiny is very different. So I wanted to make sure that my first attempt for EB1 is successful. Okay, now talking about how I chose my lawyer. I spoke with a few different lawyers before I made the pick. Different specializations, different price points, different vibes. And what I realized very quickly is that choosing an immigration lawyer for O1 or EB1 is not like hiring a vendor. It is a personal relationship. You are going to spend months working with this person on the most stressful legal process of your life. They're going to push back on your evidence. They're going to tell you when something isn't strong enough, and you need to actually trust them. I finally found an amazing lawyer and I chose her, and I want to tell you exactly why. Because the reason does matter. From the very first conversation, she just felt very genuine to me. She wasn't selling to me. She was honest about what was strong, what was weak, and what I would need to build. And critically, she was strict with me in the best possible way. I wanted somebody who would tell me the truth, push me to be better, and make me work harder on every single criteria. That's exactly what she did. She was supportive. She was also constantly raising the bar, asking me to keep pushing, asking me to add more evidence, asking me to go strengthen the weak spots. That combination is the one to look for. Genuine, honest, kind, and strict. If your lawyer is sugarcoating things, the officer reading your petition is not going to sugarcoat anything. You want the rigor at the prep stage, not at the rejection stage. Now, a few practical things from going through this. Talk to at least 3 to 4 lawyers before you decide. Pay attention to how specific they are about your case versus the generic answer. Ask them what they would push you to improve before filing. The right lawyer will see gaps and tell you about them. You should actually ask them about the actual approval track record on cases that looks like yours, not just overall numbers. And trust your gut. Now, what I did was, even though I was preparing for O1, I never applied for O1. I directly applied for EB1A. A lot of people feel a little underconfident for EB1A, and at that point, it is totally okay to just go ahead and apply for O1. O1 is an easier visa to get, and the criteria is not as strict as EB1A. So what you could ideally do if you're not feeling super confident is go ahead and apply for your O1, get it approved, and then start strengthening your different criteria so that you're ready for EB1A. The question is always, how do I keep building a career that I'm super proud of? The visa is just a downstream of that career. It is just a byproduct, not the other way around. A few tactical tips that I would give you is start with building a public profile, whether it's a website, a LinkedIn, or a GitHub. Start documenting all of your work. Start thinking about getting reference letters from people who genuinely know your work, not just famous people who barely remember meeting you. These reference letters need to be extremely deep and extremely detailed. That is what will really help you. And start before you need to. Filing under pressure is the worst time to file. You need to do this in a very mindful way. If you walk away from this video remembering one thing, let it be this. Don't just build it for your petition, start building it for your career. The petition will write itself. So what do you do now? Just take an honest look at your last 12 months of your career. Have you published anything publicly? Have you spoken at any conferences? Have you shipped any work outside of your day job? If the answer is no, then you need to start doing it. Hope this video gave you a good primer on how to get started, whether it's your O1 visa or your EB1A. All the best, and if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments below.